Okay. Perfect. Okay. Admit. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get going. There might be people popping up as we go along, but we'll just admit them and come on in. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you, and we're really excited to get this kicked off. A little bit about me, just to share with you all. My name is Emma Campbell. I'll go ahead and share my screen real quick. Awesome. That's me with a curly hair. So just a little bit about me. I've always been super passionate about writing. I had that passion since elementary school to college, where I did a little bit of comedic and creative writing. And then a year after college, I decided I kind of wanted to look into that to pursue it more. So that took me to Dublin, where I actually interned at Be Creative, the content creation company. And it was here that I met Kevin Flanagan. And it was here that the Write Your Life kind of started to become what it is today. I was lucky enough that Kevin agreed to mentor me and kind of let me experience his unique background. And after reading his book, Born to Dance, which details his ballet career with performances with Margot Fonteyn and Rudolf Nureyev, which is super fascinating, I was able to understand why he is a two-time best-selling author. And from there, I uncovered more and realized that, not only is he a best-selling author, not only did he have, experience as a professional dancer, but also he has, a lot of other interests that he pursues. He, for instance, did a documentary called Sharon's Story, which follows the Knights Run, which is an organization to help the homeless in Dublin. And we'll actually talk a little bit more about the Knights Run later on, because it is a really good organization, just giving a lot of help to the homeless community in Dublin. But that documentary went on to win awards, and I really understood more about Kevin's drive and his ability to have hands in so many different things. So I had to come home from that internship, unfortunately, and I wanted to continue it. So I asked Kevin if he'd be willing to have Zoom sessions with me. And from there, I decided, this shouldn't just be for me, it should be for other people as well who are interested. And that's kind of really how we created the concept of Write Your Life and created this workshop series kind of to help people who are interested in writing, aspiring writers, or just want to pass the time in a way that can help you mentally. So without further ado, Kevin, if you want to take it away, I'm so excited that you're willing to do this, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, no problem. And it's great. I have to thank Emma. Emma came over on an internship, which was cut short by the COVID, and had to go back with a couple of another intern back to the States. But she's really been very, she's kept in touch, and she's really driven this project. And so I really have to thank her for that. And I think it's really what she did. It was really get me thinking about this extraordinary time that we're living in. And this is, in one sense, a fantastic opportunity for everybody out there to make the most of it. One way to make the most of it is to start documenting these precious moments, really, and challenging moments. And the way you can document it is to write about it. Now, firstly, there's a public health warning I give here, like on a packet of cigarettes. When people hear the word, oh, I'm going to be a writer, I'm trying to be a writer, they think of, a garret in Paris and, an intellectual who's, on drugs and drink. And that doesn't have to be the case. It could well be the case, but I'm not talking about professional writing here. I'm not talking about having to mind your P's and Q's and good grammar. luckily, there's a fantastic way of writing. It's called expressive writing. And we can go to our first slide here. And expressive writing now has actually become a huge tool in therapy. So in one sense, this is like a free and extremely cheap way of looking after your mental health. The good news as well is that this not only looks after your mental health, but the studies show it looks after your emotional health as well. And it can have quite a dramatic impact on your well-being. So it's going to be great. And you don't have to worry about rules of grammar, writing, or spelling either. And another big thing is you don't have to show this to anyone. So we'll have a look at the next slide. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about the research, because you don't have to take my word for it. As the Guardian editor, the original editor of the Guardian newspaper says, everybody can have their opinions, but the facts are sacred, because it's a fact. It's actual reality. It's reality that if you jump out of a building, gravity is going to take you down and you're going to hurt yourself. If we pump carbon into the atmosphere, there's going to be a consequence. So they are facts. If you smoke cigarettes, it's going to have an impact. So the research on expressive writing has been going on for 30 years. And there's been different forms, as we're going to look and see about, such as the Gratitude Journal, where there's been a lot of research to show, but I'll come to that slide in a minute. But overall, you can take it for granted that if you do what we're going to suggest, and we're going to hold your hands in this and really try to help you. And all I'm asking or suggesting is that you give it 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day is not a lot, particularly now. And I think that's the really amazing thing about now, is because before, quite understandably, everybody said, well, I don't have time for that sort of thing. I don't have time for writing. I don't have time for reading. But now we almost have too much time. So it's a fantastic opportunity. There's maybe half a dozen weeks left of lockdown, and that's a guess, but it could be that we'll start to come out after that. And that's why we planned this course. And we will take you by the hand. You don't have to have any skill. You don't have to have any great writing talent to do this. I really want to share with you that you're going to get such benefits tangibly and scientifically. Well, how do I write expressively? You don't need a degree. You don't need to be trained. All you have to do is do something on your own and write on your own. And all you need is a basic 2 tools. You need paper, maybe a writing pad, and a pen or a pencil or something that costs a few cents. Just go to the next one now, and we will look at some of the forms that could really, I would suggest, maybe of use to you. And again, this is starting that anybody can do this. Okay, so journaling. I'm sure you've all heard about journaling. It's sort of like the posh word for keeping a diary. And the thing about the journal is you can start looking at your emotions and start allowing your people, particularly men, may just run, for the door at this stage. I'm not going to talk about my emotions, or how do I talk about my emotions, or this is getting a bit much. The great thing is you don't have to show anybody, only yourself. What you're really doing is you're showing the emotions to yourself. And the science shows us that is going to improve your mental well-being. And who doesn't want that? That's why we drink. That's why we take medication, to feel better. And you can do this in journaling. I love this from Julia Cameron, who suggests that she keeps a journal, and suggests in The Artist's Way, a fantastic book, by the way, that morning pages. So I'll describe her morning pages. Morning pages get us to the other side of our fear, of our negativity, of our moods. Above all, they get us beyond our censor, our inner critic, to find our own quiet center. So the big thing is that we do have a critic, and this critic actually is in a different part of the brain where we create and write. So the critic will say things like, Who the hell are you to think you should be writing about your feelings? Why are you dragging up that about your mother? You know, why you left that person or they left you? That was 5 years ago. For God's sake, stop being so indulgent. Now that's a critic. And he's he or she is a very dangerous, very dangerous part of your inner landscape. And I know I have a very active critic. And what you do with this writing, because the brain that creates words is in a different part, then what I would suggest you do is acknowledge the critic and just sit them down at the side and say, I'm just going to do this little bit of writing. I'm going to have my journal. I'm going to do what we're going to suggest now, what Kevin suggests. But be careful of the critic. And once you start writing, the critic you will actually see the critic quite clearly. So it's very powerful and it will be very useful. And again, you don't have to be intellectual to do this. In fact, quite the opposite. This is for everybody. Now, I thought I'd better share my own journal, which I keep. I do practice what I preach. I keep a journal. Here it is. It's a freebie I got from Etihad. I'm a travel writer, and here's my journal. And every day I have my bits and pieces in. I'll just go through the elements here. So if you look at the page, I took one page at random. There's nothing too salacious or incriminating on this page. So I have a couple of things. I sign in and out. If you look at the top of the page, you can see sign in, sign out. That's the number of hours I'm writing on a new book. I'm a professional writer, so I have to take these things seriously. I have to clock in and clock out as if I was working on a factory line. And I try to look at it like a factory line. You know, it's as serious as that. So there's my 2 hours a day. I actually did an extra hour that day, which was the 20th of February. And that's part of my journal. Oh, I can look back and see, okay, but I'm keeping on top of what I promised I do writing-wise, which is 2 hours a day. I personally do a lot of mind mapping and doesn't mind. That doesn't matter at all. What matters is that another part of your brain it uses illustrations and two-dimensional images, and it's really great to start doodling. We all doodle, and it's becoming a lost art because we've become so obsessed with this thing that we don't do it enough. So doodle away. I personally have this is my window that's just here to the side of me, which you can possibly see here. I look at that every day from my room, my writing room. And what I see is I do a little drawing of either the orchids or the lamp, and it starts to focus the mind, and it starts to bring the mind down. And you can really start to see lights and the shadows. And it's an incredible way of getting into the zone. Then I write down 3 things I'm grateful for from the day before, spending time with the grandkids, whatever it is, having a run, just seeing the beauty of the weather we're having at the moment. And then I take an observation from the day before because, you know, I write a weekly column, so I need to get into the practice of that. So that's my system. But I only share that to just give you an idea of how you can create your own system in your 20 minutes. Just whatever you want to do, if you have, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. So we go to the next one. If you ever get stuck, this is a good tip. Take a favorite piece of music and play it in the background. You know, try to have it in another part of the house because we don't want to bring phones or be in a room where there's a TV or you can possibly get a distraction. So you have to be careful about that. So maybe start your Spotify list in another room so you can hear it. And it's actually incredible. A song from when you were early in maybe in a relationship, when you were a child. This will evoke memories because music is like this writing. It's taking you out of this brain. So we basically have 2 brains. We have our body or somatic brain, and this is where you get gut feelings about things, where you get a gut feeling like, oh, not sure about that job, or I'm not sure about that person. So we're appealing to this, which is incredibly intelligent and maybe the deeper brain in all of this. And if you play a piece of music, you know, a song from childhood, it will immediately put you, like the sense of smell, it will bring you back 20 years, 20 months, right to that place. So that's a good tip to jumpstart. Now, there's another thing you can do if you don't fancy doing a journal, or you can do this as well as a journal, and that's letter writing. And before I say anything else, you don't have to send this letter, and you don't have to show any of this to anybody, which is absolutely great. But some of the studies on letter writing shows that it's just going back and sharing, and without diving too deep. I mean, if you have had very traumatic experiences, you need to do this, you know, with medical advice or psychological support. But I'm not really talking, I'm talking in more general terms, where actually writing down your feelings in a letter, and it could be a letter that you'd like to give to someone who's significant in your life, or a letter you may want to leave, that when your time on this earth has passed, they may want to open it. We can write on all of those. We can look at all of this. It could be that you've had someone that you feel you've neglected. Whatever it is. And the great thing is, write it. You don't have to send it. And it's the process of writing which is important, nothing else. Now, everybody, I think, has probably heard of the gratitude diaries. There's been an awful lot in the newspapers over the last maybe 5 years about how, you know, keeping a record of what's going on well in your life can have a profound impact on your personal happiness. So again, that's a fact. It's not my opinion. I'm careful about what I share about my opinion because it can be flawed. Facts are very helpful. They say, yes, if you take a lot of sugar, this is what's going to happen. If you drink a lot of alcohol, this is what's going to happen. If you daily look at your gratitude and how good your life is rather than what's poor about your life, this is what's going to happen. And it has an impact. So if you actually write down, they say between 3 and 5 things that you're happy for. You don't have to do it every day, once or twice a week. It starts to recalibrate the brain. It's quite powerful as well. And what it does is, it can give you, if you're feeling particularly challenged, it can give you a sort of a perspective that not everything is black. At the moment, a lot of people are very fearful about what life's going to bring, business, income. So if you've had a walk on some of this beautiful weather we're experiencing, I was out in St. Anne's in Clontarf today with the grandchildren, blissful, small picnic. I'm going to write about that tomorrow. I had a run down the Bull Wall yesterday as part of my daily fitness. Write that down, and just did some yoga stretches on the grass. So these are simple things, and I, had a hard day yesterday actually for a whole other set of reasons, but it just helps to know, okay, well, I'm a bit out of sorts today, or I'm a bit, not feeling great about this or that person or whatever it is. We all have it. This just helps to balance it. And what's great, we're going through this very challenging and unique time. And wouldn't it be great if you start your journal after our session tonight, and you have a gratitude journal on its own, or you incorporate it in your daily journaling, diary work, and it'll give you something to look forward to in the years to come. Wow. Pass it on to your children or grandchildren. Just look at it and say, wow, that's how I was. Look how far I've come, or look what's happened in the meantime. I really would encourage you to mind map, and we'll talk more about this. You don't have to be a good drawer. You can see from this random example of my own diary, I am not, I'm not Michelangelo. But it all helps. Again, I'm using a different part of my brain. Here on the right is the flowers and the blossom that's coming out in St. Anne's. And this is a unique time of the year. Very happy about that. On the left, the grandchildren are out with their nana, and they were lying on us. So the two of us had a picnic, and the grandkids were lying on us. It was like old lions with the young lion cubs lying on us. Bliss, really. So simple and fantastic. So you can put down your little bits and pieces, and I'd really encourage you to mind map and to write and to draw. It's like a kid. That's what kids do, and they're so in the moment. They're so there. So again, it's something that we'll look at again over these 6 weeks as we journey together, and we're going to help you as much as we can to just do this little journal yourselves. I think this is very interesting. If you are going to do the journal with us, your diary, it may be good to have one part where you now have the time to start looking to the future and to say, okay, well, what do I really want to do with my life? And I know a lot of people, I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking and saying, wow, I was running around chasing my tail a hell of a lot. I have a reasonably balanced life, I think. But it's given me a chance to sit down and say, well, what do I really want to do with the time that's remaining? And it's also given us pause that, life doesn't go on. People are dying. And that makes us face what most people don't want to face into day-to-day life with our running around. It's all about life, next. Now we're all stopping. I look out of my window here in Drumcondra and just near Croke Park. Croke Park's just at the end of the road, and there's no milling. Not even a cat. So it gives us a chance to actually stop and think. And so if there was something that and this is a great question, and we'll talk about this going forward, but a great question to put down, and you can write this down now if you so wishes. If money wasn't an issue and I could become anything I wanted, what would I be? Now, it's really important you put, if money wasn't an issue, and then the second one is, I can become anything, pop star, rugby player, anything, pop star, porn star. It doesn't actually matter what you put down, but it mustn't be edited by that bit that says, don't be so pretentious, or don't be so, come on, get over yourself. You don't want to hear that. That's the critic. We want to allow the critic to take a few days off here. So I would really encourage you to do that future, put down, answer that question. And we're going to do it over the weeks. If I had no money worries for the foreseeable future and could choose to do anything I wanted, what would it be? And you'd be amazed what you'll write down. And then once you've written it down, the idea is being unleashed from the critic's cage, that internal part of you, which is a very controlling parent or teacher or somebody who abused you in some way, was rough with you or horrible to you, namely ourselves. So this can be fantastic. So maybe have a part where you do this, if this future, what would I be if I could be anything? And let's just see what happens. And again, you don't have to show this to anybody. It's for you and nobody else. And if you want to chat, fine. Let me go to the next one. Some I know would like to write. They've always said to me, oh, I would love to write a novel. I have a great idea for a film. Oh, I have this fantastic idea. Having been writing for 40 years, having had a couple of bestsellers, having, written good, 2 or 3 film scripts, having had a lot of rejection, having had some ideas that now I'd cringe at. It's really important. While it's up here as an idea, it's just going to be fantasy, essentially. You might as well say, well, why don't I date a supermodel? Why don't I win the lottery? It's when you actually put it down. So what I would suggest to people, if you do have an idea for a novel or a movie, write what's called a treatment. And a treatment is a 1-page to 3-page, point by point. And what that will help you do is to see, firstly, oh my God, suddenly the idea doesn't quite add up to what you thought it would, or suddenly it runs out of steam. And that great idea may not be as great as you thought it was, particularly when you show it to a friend. So it can be a great reality check, writing things down. You're taking business, a new adventure in life. I'm going to move over to India and join an ashram, whatever. Write it down. And then when you look at it, it changes this process from here to writing it down, changes it. So try that if you're want to explore ideas about creative ideas. Now, this is a biggie. This is a personal biggie for me, a bit of a rant coming now, so just prepare yourselves. It goes back to this paper that was published in Psychological Sciences, and these two researchers found that physically writing, and it's called cursive. So you see it on the screen, you can see the writing there on that little bit of a letter between the pen nibs. That's cursive writing. It's when you join up. There's the word main. That's called cursive writing. Now, it's a completely different process to tapping on a computer screen. It is far more complex. You start taking ideas and they physically actually come through the pen, as we'll see in the later slide. So I think it is incredibly important. I would only, if you can see here, I'm going to show you the bits and pieces of my latest book, and I'm doing this, writing this book, as you can see here. That's how it's being written by hand. A little mind map each morning to show where I'm going, and I write it by hand. Now, what that means is I can't, they found that if you write on a computer, you have so many options: spell checking, research. You can go off and start researching, which is a great way of sort of wasting time, or procrastinating, because writing is so difficult. You can change it, you can cut and paste, but with this, you can't. And you're much more disciplined. So I strongly recommend, when you're doing this, this little journaling we're going to do, this expressive writing, I strongly recommend a simple pen, biro, pencil, and a sheet of blank paper. That's all you need. Next slide. I do believe the pen is mightier than the sword, and the different parts of the brain that you use, particularly if you're writing cursively, which is joined up writing, incredibly beneficial, incredible discipline, and something we're losing as we become more and more orientated around this. And next. Now, just to show how incredible it is, and it's very hard to, as a professional writer, to understand that. Here's three greats. You've got Rudyard Kipling, who wrote possibly one of the most famous children's books, The Jungle Book, turned into a movie by Disney, which means you really made it. Oscar Wilde, our own Oscar Wilde. I was actually in Merrion Square reading the quotes on his statue today. I can resist everything but temptation. And what a beautiful day it was. He never used anything but a pen. And then, of course, there is the great William Shakespeare. 30 plays, hundreds of sonnets, and incredible. And he did it with an old-fashioned feather pen and parchment. It's mind-boggling to believe that some of the greatest, funniest, most memorable writing was done with this. And so you don't need a computer or a smartphone. I strongly recommend going back to the old-fashioned pen and treat yourself when the shops are back open to, pen and ink, and just for the pleasure of it. And just the final thought about, pen versus computer. As you channel everything into your writing, your actual personality seeps through, which never happens on a keyboard. And it seeps through so much that the FBI employ experts to look at handwriting samples, and they can tell a lot. They can tell about your mental condition. They can even identify serial killers by the way they write. It's incredible. So writing is coming from inside. Now, we've talked a lot about all the different things that you can do. Now I'm going to give you my experience of 30 years doing this, and this is where it gets, this is the bad news, if you like. But it's not so bad. All you need to commit over the next 6 weeks on a daily basis, I'll let you have one day off during the week, but if you really want to make progress, you should do this every day. And that's 20 minutes. Now 20 minutes is the time it takes to smoke a couple of cigarettes, to have a glass of beer or a coffee, it's not a lot of time. It's less than what most people watch now, 5 to 6 hours of TV. 20 minutes is a fraction of that. So it's not a lot. It's a minimum. You can take more, but I'm suggesting if you want to make actual progress, you need to give 20 minutes a day to this. Now you have to pick that time, and you will grow more over as we go along. You will overcome the challenges of sitting at a desk, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. But the trick is, once you have and I use this, my very loved IKEA, I think it's from IKEA. It's a beautiful old-fashioned alarm clock with the old-fashioned Roman, beautiful, simple. And I put the alarm clock on. I do not move from this desk in front of that window until that alarm clock goes off. 20 minutes, it's not a lot. But you have to follow this. This is gold, what I'm giving you now as regards how to take what a professional writer has learned and use it when you start your journaling to really get the physical, emotional, and psychological benefits. Right, more bad news or more good news. In these 20 minutes, you have to leave your phone in another room and off or on silent. That is incredibly important. There are studies done that even that the notification ping goes to the same part of the brain as a child's cry. That's why we go, I have to answer this as if it's the most important thing. Well, if it was a child crying, it would be. But they're very clever. The guys that create these phones and social medias, they all know what they're doing. Best brains on the planet among them. So you don't allow. There's also research to show that even just glancing, so you get a notification and I go on and I look, oh my God, what? So, I beg your pardon, sorry. Sorry, just give me a second here. What? I don't believe it, they're having that and that. That's what happens. I become distracted. I immediately go in. And even if I look at the notification, it could be taking me 15 minutes. This is studies they do on students who are doing their homework and they leave the phone on. And even just looking at a notification means their brain could go off into a whirl. Oh, so-and-so is looking at so-and-so. There's going to be another lockdown in this. You cannot do this work and be distracted. It's one or the other. And if you're going to bring the phone in, it's not going to work. Nor will sitting in front of TV or radio. So, and if there's anybody else who lives in your house or your apartment, let them know for 20 minutes, it's not a lot. We'd all sit down and say, don't disturb me, I'm going to watch Corrie for the next 20 minutes of EastEnders or the Netflix. But so those are the only things you need to do. That's the hard work. 20 minutes, chained to the desk, no distractions. And if you do that, I promise every single one of you that you will get rewards very, very surprisingly profound. And we're going to look at that now. I would guarantee you that if you can spend the next 6 weeks with us, and we're going to take you, as I say, as your support, as your friends, we're going to take you by the hand. You don't have to your shocking spelling, your shocking handwriting, your shocking ambitions, your shocking and terrible secrets and past. Nobody has to hear. Only showing it to yourself. And then if you choose to share it to others. But that's as far as it goes. So you can write in any way you like, on anything you like, and you will get something that is worth more than diamonds and gold. I guarantee you that. And this is why I'm doing this with Emma. With Emma, great Emma. We're doing this so you can start to benefit. It's free. This is free. Writing is free, and you will get gold. So why write? Just to finish off this little sort of interaction. We must tell stories, as the great Umberto Eco said. We have to tell stories around the campfire, from the beginning of time, from the cave paintings. We have to say, John met Eve, Adam met Eve, they fell in love, the serpent came along, ruined it all. What a great story that is. And that's the beginning of mankind in one story, and fantastic truth in that as well. So we write because we have to. Now, another great tip, and I'm taking this from the great Stephen King, Pet Sematary, The Shining, you name it, he's written it. What a writer. But he's so true when he says, to become a writer, you must read. So I'd suggest over the next 6 weeks, however long we have, instead of doing 2 hours of Netflix, do an hour and a half of Netflix and half an hour of a book. You can get audio books now. You can listen. You don't have to just read books. Remember, I'm a big fan of audio books. They are not secondhand reading. Trust me. If you look back to how we all started, it was the elders of the tribe would take down the oral tradition. That's how the great Greek tragedies, the Bible even, was passed on orally. Somebody learned it because writing was much more difficult then. With, you had to get very expensive papyrus reeds, so it was all oral. And then you'd have the storyteller in the tribe. So now you've got so many. If you go onto YouTube, you can get any book you like: Harry Potter, Stephen King, and when you're in the car or when you're just give yourself half an hour to listen. Alternatively, go to your bookshop. I'm sure there bookshelf. I'm sure there are books there, and read 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes of writing, 20 minutes of reading. That's not a lot, is it? You will get so much out of it. And the gifts of writing at research here this is research driven as well. You will start to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. So when I look out of my window in the morning, I'm sort of crammed with what's going on in life, and then suddenly you start to see, look at the light on that thing there, or you start to think about maybe the look in your grandchild's eyes, or you just saw someone who was suffering on the street. Today I saw Sharon, who we made the documentary about, who is a homeless person, and she was on the street, and I stopped and we had a great chat. And it's just, it's ordinary, but it becomes extraordinary if you give it time. And that you'll find importance where there was none. And the other thing about writing is it will give you the chance to relive your childhood, parts of it, and bring it back. It's such a precious part, and you can give it life by writing. And you may see yourself in a new way, and it will certainly help you with gratitude. You start to say, oh, wow, that happened today, as well as the tough things in life. So writing, I think, Anis Nin said, we write to taste life twice, in the moment and in retrospect when we write. And the other quote there I really love from Natalia Goldberg: writers live twice. They live when they're experiencing it, and then they live when they write about it. So you're going to get an opportunity to wring the last little drop out of your life. And when it comes to harder things, things that may be tough, things that may be challenging about your upbringing or about what you've done to people, what people have done to you, writing is better than smoking and drinking and all those other things that we do to cover them up because they're too painful. As Paulo Coelho, the great writer, said, tears are words that need to be written. Isn't that so beautiful? Even that sentence is so beautiful. And O'Connor says, I write to discover what I know, but I haven't realized I know it, but you will when you start writing. It's a sort of a miracle. You can't edit a blank page. You can edit bad writing. You can't edit no writing. So start writing, no matter. And you've got to turn the faucet on. If you don't turn on the water tap, no water's going to flow. Simple as. And then I'm going to finish off now. We're just coming to the end of this. Anton Chekhov, the Russian master, he talked about, in Hollywood, there's this saying, don't show me, don't tell me, show me. So don't tell me it's cold. Show someone, in the cold, shivering and dying of cold. And Anton Chekhov said this, amazing, what a beautiful piece of writing. Maybe you'll come up with something like this. Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass. It's so beautiful. I'll say it one more time and just sort of savor it like a first sip of coffee in the morning. Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass. And that's what I'm going to hold your hands and help you to do for yourselves, is let your imagination roam, and you will get such a gift from this, a free gift. Share your story. As the saying goes, there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story. Tell your story. It's worth telling, believe me, even if you're just telling it to yourself, especially if you're just telling it to yourself. And for those who want to maybe, think that they may, one day get, I'd like to sort of maybe share what I've discovered. I think it's worth, it. I believe this is true. If the book is true, if your writing is true, you'll find the audience that's meant to read it. And I believe that's an absolute reality. And remember, you may think your life is messy and chaotic, but it's also fantastic. And you'll start making sense of the no sense or the nonsense. And the great Thoreau, a fantastic American writer, said this great truth: it's vain to sit down to write when you've not stood up to live. And I know everybody watching this tonight has stood up to live in their own way. So now you have something to write about, your own tableau. So very briefly, what we're going to cover in the next few weeks, it's here. This week I'd like you to pick, I've given you a little menu, gratitude diary, or a journal, or writing about a short story or a book or a film, or even writing about what I'd like to do with my future. So pick something. I would suggest the journal, and which you can use also as a gratitude journal. Next week we're going to look at that. You're going to pick it, spend this week picking it, and then we're going to look at how you can really drill into these. And we can interact on this Zoom, this fantastic panel. So that will be great. The third week, we'll look at the common pitfalls that most writers face. We've talked about some tonight. We'll start drilling into them, and you may start, as you start to do your journal, maybe discover them. The week after that, we'll get their first draft. You actually have something you can hold up to the screen. You don't have to show what it is, just I've done this. And then we're going to go right through to how to keep the momentum going. You may get bored, or I can't go on, I've lost my way. How do we deal with that? And how do you get over the finishing line? And we'll be there to help you in every way, and I'll be there to answer your questions. And we'll even have an extra week at the end, problem solvers. If you're lost, or you've given up, or you want to give up, and we'll be there to help you. And I think with that, I can hand over to Emma for our most important bit, which is questions and answers. And I know there's a number of questions already have come in, and this is the really important bit where you come on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kev, and thank you again for being willing to share with us, and for being here. I appreciate it. If you do have a question, it looks like we may already have a couple, but just so that everybody knows the process, if you have a question, go ahead and type your name into the chat, which is down at the bottom of your screen. And then once you type your name in, I'll go and find you on the little participants and ask you to come on the screen and share with Kevin.
And you can also wave as well. If for whatever reason we can't get it, just wave and we'll see you as well.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like we already, like I said, have a question from Ben. So Ben, I'm going to go ahead, invite you on the screen. Let me go ahead and do that.
I think Ben's having an internet issue, so we may only get audio on him. He's
yeah. Ben, if you just want to unmute yourself, you should be good to go now.
Sure, thanks, Emma. Yeah, the internet isn't that great down here in rural Waterford, so sorry about that. But I heard the presentation all the way through, at least, which was great. So thanks very much, Kev. That was really, really inspirational.
Great, I'm glad you enjoyed.
So I just had a question. Um, Kev, obviously, you and I have worked together before. We know each other, and I know a bit about you. And I know that you've written so many different types of work over the years. So I just wanted to ask, obviously, what you've talked about today is a specific type of writing that anyone can do. You don't have to be a writer, just a pen and paper, trying to get your thoughts down, see what comes. And I'm just wondering if there's a connection for you between that type of writing that you do and the professional writing that you do, or do you have to put a different hat on when you go into that space, when you write your Sunday Independent column, or when you work on a...
See you, Ben, and Ben, I'd have to say is the most proficient writer I know. Not only has he a PhD in writing, and he's an editor of a major news media online portal, but he's the best editor I ever worked with. He worked with us on Be Creative on the Sunday Independent and the Irish Independent for many years together. So he's a great colleague and a fantastic writer. And so what I would say there, Ben, is it's doing, as you know, it's like a car mechanic. I'd liken it to a car mechanic. When you've done it for so long, it looks pretty complex. When I take my car into Willie O'Reilly around the corner there, and he lifts the bonnet and he looks in, and it's extraordinary. He just turns the engine on, and within maybe 30 seconds, he's sorted it out. And I'm going, what the? How does he do that? And he does it with that efficiency because he's been doing it as his job. So when I write my weekly column, and then everybody here who's joined us today, and I'm looking at some great faces there, and I see one guy there, I'm always on the beach somewhere, which is very unisolating. I'm a bit shocked to see that. I see Anne in New York, which is great to see. Great to see all of you guys. I'm jealous of where Niall is. But that's my trade is writing about travel, and I've been doing it for many years. And so it's I can do what Willie does when he opens a bonnet. I can just go and say, okay, this week we're doing 200 words on Etihad, on Aer Lingus, on Pompeii, visiting Pompeii. It's not difficult. Niall is a great Mai Tai teacher. He doesn't have any problems with that. Ben, if he was editing something, he'd just do it like that. Same with Anne with her skills. But then I have this really interesting part where every morning I come and sit here, I look out of that window, and I'll be in exactly the same place that every one of you will be. If you decide to do this 20 minutes a day, we're going to share the same space. And you know what that space is? Opportunity. And nobody knows what's going to come in that opportunity. Isn't that fantastic? I have no idea what's going to happen when I sit down every morning. I don't dread sitting down now. I just love it too much. But I know times when I have dreaded it. Oh God, the empty page. But I'm in a better place now, and I can really cherish it. You know, I like that because I know it's going to work. That's another thing. So in answer to your question, Ben, I think that when I go into this new place, and at the moment I'm writing a new book, a new novel. It's about the Romanovs and Fabergé and the egg. I've got all of these mind maps of the plot. I've got, it's all on my desk here. I've got my schedule set up, and I'm writing up the characters, doing a little sort of mind, drawing out the characters in the book. And it comes, I sit there for 10 minutes, nothing happens. And I've learned, that's why I say you have to sit there for 20 minutes. I've learned the trick. It will come. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. I remember the mind maps from Be Creative, so it's good to see you're still doing them every morning.
Yes. And Ben, I know Ben is a very proficient writer. What's your process in really getting yourself started, which all of our friends here are going to face if they decide to start a journal? How would you share from your own vast experience? What tips would you give to our colleagues here who've joined us this evening to get started if they haven't written before and they're feeling, oh, what am I going to be doing writing? That's way too intellectual for me, or whatever.
No, I think you really had some very good tips there. I think often when you want to write, but you don't know where to start, you don't know where to start. So you just have to start somewhere. And I think the key things that you point, leave the phone in another room, use touchstones or things that inspire you, that are important in your own life, like a favorite song, music that you mentioned. Trying to get a clear mind, which isn't always easy. Music can help with that. Going for a walk can help with that. Sometimes just staring out the window for a long time can help with that. And then the pieces come together, and an idea pops in and you put it down. But I do think as well, the key thing that you pointed out that is very true is just making the time. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sit there, see what happens. And maybe something doesn't happen on the first day, except that you write the date down and that you sat there and you clocked in and you clocked out. Yes. But maybe something happens on the second day, and you've made the time. You're in that process of, okay, this is something I've started, and then see where it takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see there's so much richness. I'm looking down, I see Phil's there as well. Hi, Phil. I'm looking at, the lives that I know some of my friends who are here tonight have lived, and they've got experiences, quite often challenging experiences, and experiences that can be, really, really challenging. And this is such an opportunity. It's a tool for dealing with some of that difficult stuff that's gone on in your life or your family life or whatever. So thanks for that, Ben, and great to see you, and great to get your contribution. Much appreciated.
Yeah, and it looks
Thanks,
like, oops. It looks like we also have a question from an Anne. Anne, I see your question here. I wanted to know if you want to explain it yourself. If you want to come on video, you just have to go into the bottom left of your screen, unmute yourself, and then start your video up.
Thank you. Hi, Kay. Hi, everybody. It's great to see names I know around. Hi, Clary, Phil, Porig, everybody, Ben. So I'm sorry I joined late, but I did get something from this. And it just applies, I think it applies to everything that we're struggling with at the moment. And I think it's just start and do something, consistently. And what I wanted to ask is, you've done trainings, you've been training people a long time, Kevin, and your staff in people, just writers that you've taken under your wing, and some really, heavy hitter writers. What would you say would likely be the biggest takeaway that people get from working with you over and doing something like the 6-week course that you're presenting to us?
Well, I think, well, thanks for that question, Anne. And I know you're on a different time zone. You're actually from New York. We have a real stellar audience tonight, and we're just starting off, and it's just, we're starting off, intimate, which I like. And, this is not a numbers game. So Anne's in New York, and it's a challenging time over there. So we appreciate you taking the time to come on. What I think I've learned is that there is a process. And I think it's I go to something like ballet, which I loved and knew a lot. And you will have great ballet teachers. You'll have great Muay Thai teachers, like now, or Muay Thai, or however you pronounce it. I'll get it right after 15 years. But what you see, you'll have great teachers, but you still do ballet every day. So ballet is the thing. That's the thing. You still do your Muay Thai every day. That's the thing. And teachers will change, teachers will come and go. But what you're doing is the process. So what I think you're going to get out of this, I think you're going to get good support from myself and Emma, and people like Ben who come on, and it's brilliant to get that sort of contribution. But what you'll really take away is the process, which is starting your journal and sitting down with yourself and knowing what to do. And that's where the riches will come, because the process is bigger than the teacher. The teacher's only a way to get you there, if you see what I mean. It's learning that process. And as Ben so eloquently, quiet space and be prepared to be bored, and nothing may happen. And right at the top of your page, check in, check out, as if you were stacking shelves in Tesco. You know, a frontline job at the moment, as it turns out, and a fantastic job, which we're all very thankful for. But that's the critical thing: is check in. I sat down there, and if Niall was doing this tomorrow, it doesn't matter whether anything happens. I sat down at 10:10. I got up at 10:30. Not a lot happened, but I put it in, and tomorrow something else will happen. So it's a process, I think, Anne, is what I've learned that people do. And then I see people, who started off, it's great. We work with so many interns, and, I think I gave Ben his, I think it was his first job actually as writing. I could be wrong there, but I think it was. And then to see someone blossom into a magnificent professional, it's with them. Ben actually gives me work now, travel writing work. So the shoe is definitely on the other foot. I think it's great. Once you learn the process, it's like when you learn ballet or when you learn to play the piano. The teacher's important, but it's the process.
Thank you very much, Kez.
I can't hear you, Emma. I think you've got to unmute yourself.
I do. Good catch. All right. It looks like we have another one from Claire. Claire, if you want to join on and ask Kevin, you just need to unmute and put on the video.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Anne. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Kevin, I wanted to ask you about, okay, so for example, if you found a story or someone inspired you, and you wanted to write about it, how do you write about it without being influenced by other people's style? And I think that's without having your own thoughts.
Okay, I think that's a very good question. And I think it will be great. It's like what Bill Gates said, that's a first world problem. It's like, if you are writing so well that, you're being influenced by other people, I think that's a fantastic problem to have. It means you're being very proficient. Don't forget the axiom. Was it Oscar Wilde who said, clever people copy, geniuses steal. So I have no problem in stealing from Dan Brown or whoever, because he stole from someone else. But I think what will happen is, I would go back to the ballet class analogy, that if you get into doing what I do every day, at least the first 20 minutes, that's why I say 20 minutes of my day, sitting at my desk, I get my journal, I open it, here's today, here's today's, and do the journal today. Sometimes you won't do it, but I'm doing a lot of writing. So I think from your point of view, do stick to the everyday journaling. I did the journal, that's the bentwood chair. I did my gratitude, and then I wrote a little story about smugness, like feeling good about the lockdown, and how you have to be careful because so many people don't feel good, and if you over glory and how good it is for you, you could come across as being rather smug. So that's, it's an interesting observation on life. And I think if you go in to do that every day, you are suffusing that with your own life. That's Claire. It's nobody else. So I don't think I wouldn't be too worried about the problem of, am I sounding like, Stephen King, or am I wouldn't worry about that. I would start writing. That's why when you write your personal journal, it's very personal to you, and that come out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And so if you wanted to start writing a novel or an article, is expressive writing where it all starts, in a way? That's when
I think expressive writing is almost I think that's a good observation. I hadn't actually thought about that, but I think that is a very good start, because it's unedited. And I think anything unedited, you know, you have to have the tools. Like, so I'm a professional writer, so I have to write grammatically correctly. I have to have correct spelling. I have to have correct punctuation. Otherwise, I won't be published in something like the Sunday Independent any more than, you know, Niall is a great swim teacher. If he doesn't teach his students the proper way, you know, they'll drown, or they, you know, he'll be fired. You know, you have to have, you know, the correct. You have to know what you're doing. You know, whatever your trade is. The guy who, you know, looks after my car, he has to do it because otherwise it's not roadworthy and I'll have a crash. And that could endanger one's life. So you have to know what you're doing. But after that, I think, you know, then you can just let your imagination free. And I love when I come in here and I sit down and I don't know, but I know something's going to come. And that's incredible. And I think all I want to be able to do is, in the last week of this course, is for you all to be able to, you know, put up your hands, come on, either full picture or just audio, or just send in a short couple of sentences to say, this is what I got out of this, because I'm so believe in this, because it works. So I think that is a great way, expressive writing, take the handbrake off, see where you go. Be interesting, actually, Ben, if you're still there, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on where you, as a writer of several books and poetry books, where you then, you know, get rid of all of this, you know, you have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge of grammar and everything. How do you get into that space where something fresh can come?
Well, I think Claire hit on a very interesting point, which is maybe everything starts with the journaling, which is what you were saying at the start of the presentation as well, Kev. And I think that's a great way to discover your own voice. And like you said, some of the best writers copy and steal and adapt other writers' voices. And in a way, if you have a writer you like and you can start by writing like them, that's a really good thing. That's a fantastic thing. Yeah. But keeping a journal, and every morning, every evening, the thoughts that come to you, putting them down, your observations on life, keeping that as well and keeping that work up, I think really. And sometimes that is something you have to learn. I think part of becoming a writer is getting to know yourself a bit better. And that's also why that daily writing can help anyone, you know, mentally deal with different situations, as you touched on in the presentation as well, Kev. So, yeah, I think you discover your voice only through writing, through putting that time in. And that's why it's so important to do that every day. And that's what I still do. Make some notes, keep a journal, keep all the observations that I have, and maybe you come back to them at some point. Yeah. And I think that helps me clarify my thoughts and keep the work going and the next project ticking over.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks. Does that help, Claire? Does all of that
great
help?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Ben. That was great. Yeah.
No problem. Now I know we're coming sort of to the end of our hour. Is there another question there, Emma? We maybe take one more.
If there are any more questions, let us know. We are a little bit over, but if you do have a question, let us know. I'm gonna probably. Looks like. I don't think we have any more questions.
Okay, well, that's good, because we're on time now. So I think it's good to try to stick to the hour. I know people have, you know, things to do, and we want to stick to the hour. So maybe you just want to wrap things up for us then.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all for joining us again. We really appreciate it. Let me open up my screen here again. So this was our first session, and we loved doing this, but we went over a little bit of what's to come next week. Just to reiterate that if you want to choose one of these methods that Kev outlined, journal, gratitude diary, letter, piece describing your future life or dream, short story or novel idea. If you want to mull that over and pick one for next week, we'll be here. And if you have questions that you come up with in this middle week, or that you were like, oh shoot, I meant to ask that, but I didn't get a chance, I didn't think of it quickly enough, go ahead and bring them with you to next week, and we'll have question and answers with Kev again, because that's really, really important to us. If you maybe can't catch next week or can't catch the following week, or maybe you know friends that missed this week, we are recording these sessions and they will be up on YouTube, so you can automatically go see it and join us whenever you can, because we really love your company. Awesome. And also, this is, as we talked about a little bit earlier, a community support program. So if this has been of value to you, you know, we encourage you to check out the Order of Malta, specifically the Knights Run, which was the topic in the documentary Homeless in Dublin. The link to the donate button and the link to the video documentary is also on our Facebook page. So if it has been of value to you, and if you can donate, I know that maybe some people don't, that's totally fine. Even, you know, €1, they would be immensely grateful. So thank you all again so much for joining us. And
yeah,
hopefully
just on the donation thing, that's entirely up to you. We just, you know, this is, you know, I just have a great love for for Sharon, who I met again today, which was fantastic. And she's still on the street. She says there's nobody there. And you know, but people are very generous. Some people are. And it's sort of like, you know, $1, €1. It's entirely up to you. We love doing this anyway. It's just an option. You're all good people, and you all help in your own way, your own different things. So it's just there if and when. That's all. And I know all of you, most of you, have helped the Knights Run in so many different ways as well. So don't feel any big obligation there.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much again. It was a pleasure.